Performance Prism is a performance hierarchy management framework used to manage the need of all key stakeholders of an organization. Neely and Adams use a representation of white light shone into a prism and how it is refracted to show the complexity of performance management. The benefits of Performance Prism is that its focus is on all stakeholders, like investors, customers, suppliers, employees, regulators, and communities, and not just the owners of the organization. The Performance Prism manages performance from 5 interrelated facets. Stakeholder satisfaction, which is the ultimate goal of the organization and therefore the top of the prism. Stakeholder contribution, strategies, processes, and capabilities. Stakeholder satisfaction, which is the ultimate goal of the organization and therefore the top of the prism, starting with stakeholders and not strategies. The first facet of the prism focuses on who are the stakeholders of the organization and what do they want. The theory here being not keeping key stakeholders happy will affect the future profits of an organization. The questions to ask are, who are the stakeholders? Maybe using Mendelow's matrix here to evaluate stakeholders' level of power and interest. What do the stakeholders want and need from the organization? An organization needs to identify the most important stakeholders and what they want from the organization. The organization can then identify performance measurements to ascertain how well the organization is meeting those needs. For example, investors, both equity and debt, want return on their investment, true and fair results and reporting from an organization. Equity investors also want rewards for their loyalty in the form of dividends and capital gains. Customers want fast, cheap, reliable products and services. Employees want interesting and safe work with decent remuneration. Suppliers want a profitable relationship, and regulators want organizations to act legally, fairly, and safely. Stakeholder contribution. Organizations are becoming more demanding on their stakeholders. The second prism of the Performance Prism focuses on what the organization needs from their stakeholders. The relationship between the organization and its stakeholders should be seen as a two-way relationship. An organization needs to put in place measurements to identify if stakeholders are fulfilling the organization's needs. The questions to ask here are, what do we want and need from our stakeholders? What contributions do we require from our stakeholders if we are to develop and maintain capabilities? From investors, an organization may want capital for growth and willingness to take on more risk. From customers, an organization may want loyalty and profits. Customer profitability analysis may be used here. From employees, an organization may want flexibility and skill. From suppliers, an organization may want flexibility, reliability, and value. From regulators, an organization may want understanding of the industry sector issues and reduced regulation. Strategies. The third prism of the Performance Prism is strategies. This should not be confused with the organization's goals. Strategies are how an organization will reach its goals and not the goals itself. Goals should be set using the first two facets of the prism. Strategies should now be used to ensure the organization is meeting the wants and needs of the stakeholder while ensuring the organization's needs are being met also. The questions to ask here are, what strategies do we have in place to satisfy the wants and needs of key stakeholders while satisfying our own requirements too? Having identified the appropriate strategies, performance measures will be identified that can be used to determine whether the selected strategies are working. The purpose of performance measure relating to strategies are to show how well the strategies are being implemented, to communicate the strategies within the organization, to encourage the implementation of strategies by managers, and to see if the strategies themselves are appropriate. Processes. An organization needs to find out if they have the right business processes to support its strategies. The fourth prism of the Performance Prism is processes. The questions to ask here: what critical processes do we need if we are to execute these strategies? Many organizations classify 4 business processes as follows: develop products and services, generate demand, fulfill demand, plan and manage the enterprise. These processes can then be subdivided into more detailed processes. Each process and sub-process will have its own process owner who is responsible for the functioning of that process. Measures will then be developed to see how well these processes are working. Management will have to identify which are the most important processes and focus attention on these, rather than simply measuring the functioning of all processes. Business process re-engineering may be used at this stage to identify any redundant processes. Capabilities are the fifth prism of the Performance Prism. They are the people, practices, technologies, and infrastructure required to enable the process to work. It is important that the right capabilities exist within an organization in order to support the processes identified. In the capabilities facet of the Performance Prism, the organization needs to identify which capabilities are required and identify performance measures to see how well these capabilities are being performed. The questions to ask here are: what capabilities do we need to operate and enhance these processes? What capabilities do we need to improve our business processes? The advantages of the Performance Prism is that it focuses on the wants and needs of a number of stakeholders. The theory being that failure to listen to stakeholders' wants and needs may lead to performance management which is driven by internally generated strategies. Things to consider when talking about the Performance Prism is that it gives little detail with regards to what performance measurements should be used for each perspective. The problem with the increase in measurement is that management start to micromanage their organizations and lose sight of the strategic side of management. There is also the cost of providing the information and the management time spent on it, compared to the questionable benefits that the measurements bring. Management do not need more reports, they just need to know what is going on in the business. Performance management should be a process of gathering management information, not simply measuring everything. The Performance Prism can be used in connection with other analysis tools, such as benchmarking. Benchmarking is a very useful tool for an organization when determining what capabilities they possess and what capabilities they require to perform processes. The McKinsey 7S model. This model can be used to identify what capabilities the organization needs to perform its processes and ultimately meet its business strategy. As such, it can be a useful tool to use alongside the Performance Prism when trying to ask the question, what capabilities do we need to improve our business processes? The value chain analysis can be used as a tool within the Performance Prism to help in the processes facet, where the management are asking, what are the processes that we have to put in place to meet our strategies? Business process re-engineering can be used at the processing stage to eliminate or reduce any unnecessary activities.